Back now to the president's news conference and new questions about an Obama administration mandate forcing religious institutions to cover birth control. Sandra Fluke gained national attention when she appeared in front of Congress and complained about female students at Georgetown Law School, a Catholic school, having to cover the cost of contraception themselves out of pocket. The debate got ugly, so ugly, the president himself reached out at one point and called Fluke, a move he addressed just about a half hour ago.
And I wanted Sandra to know that that I thought her parents should be proud of her, and that we want to send a message to all our young people that being part of a democracy involves argument and disagreements and debate, and we want you to be engaged.
Joining me now, Leslie Marshall, a syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor, and Lars Larson, also a syndicated radio host. So there is, in the fog that's followed since the whole ugliness around Sandra Fluke's testimony, we may have lost the debate over what she was testifying to in the first place. And Bernie Goldberg was on with Bill O'Reilly last night and phrased it this way. Watch.
This woman also, again, and she was very civil in her testimony. I have no problem with that. My only problem is with the content of what she said. She is a poster person for the entitlement society.
Your thoughts on it, Lars?
Absolutely. The president's right that Ms. Fluke should be engaged, but she feels entitled. And think about this. As a person who's going to one of the most expensive law schools in America on scholarship, she then turns around and says, and you should pay for my birth control too. She then told Congress that it's going to be $3,000 over the 3 years of her law school, and yet right down the street from her, the Target store in Washington, D.C. sells birth control pills at $9 a month, which works out to about $300. She feels that she's entitled to have her fellow citizens, fellow Americans, through their taxes or through their insurance premiums, pay for her birth control. Most of us do not want that kind of entitlement, and in fact, we think it's damaging to the country to have that sense of entitlement that everything should be provided for you. Housing, education, health care, food, water, birth control pills, contraceptives. I mean, that's ridiculous, Megyn.
Leslie, I'll tell you why this jumped out at me, and we were the first show to bring her testimony to national attention, and why it jumped out at me. I also went to law school and practiced law for 9 years. I didn't go to Georgetown Law School, which is a top 14 school. I went to Albany Law School. I did not get a scholarship. I put myself $100,000 into debt when I was 21 years old to finance my own education because I believed in the promise of a better future and what that might provide me if I worked hard. I didn't have any health insurance, never mind coverage of my contraception, and it never, ever dawned on me to go seeking to somebody else to pay for that insurance or to provide me with coverage of my contraception. It jumped out at me as somebody who sounded like she felt entitled. Do you have any sort of reaction like that when you watch her?
Well, Megyn, I was in the same boat as you. Not law school or Albany, but definitely had a lot of student loans, et cetera. And, I understand how some people might feel that. And I want to say for the record, as I've said before, I do believe that religious institutions should have waivers from having to provide the funding for contraception. However, as a woman, one of the things that bothers me is that birth control has sort of in the society become, and not just recently, the responsibility of the woman. And if we just lay it out and say, okay, if nobody is going to provide funding for this contraception, what happens on the other end? If a woman doesn't want her child and puts it into the foster care system, we pay for that. If a woman can't afford to care for her child, we pay for welfare, WICA, health care through Medicaid, and a lot of health care benefits that those on the right don't want to pay for. And of course, if you say, okay, go to your local Planned Parenthood, we want to defund that. I may not agree with her 100%. I may say, look, pick a different institution, not a Catholic or religious institution. But I understand why she's asking what she's asking, because I don't think birth control is just about the pill. I don't think birth control is just the responsibility of women. And quite frankly, if we paid for condoms, we could reduce not only pregnancy, but sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV, the virus that causes AIDS and can kill.
Lars, Sandra Fluke talks about the birth control coverage as though there is no option if you don't get coverage from Georgetown University. That, you know, paying for it out of pocket is just prohibitively expensive. I mean, just so our viewers know, all right, just so our viewers know, the average Georgetown Law School graduate, top 14 law. You know how hard it is to get into Georgetown Law School in general. Georgetown. The average graduate from Georgetown Law School, guess what they start at? We're talking usually 24 years old.
Probably $150,000.
$160,000 their first year out of law school. Now she's a public interest student, which means she's going to practice law in the public interest. She may not earn as much, but she said she was there testifying on behalf of all the students there. $160,000. And the question, Lars, is whether the American people had such a visceral reaction to that testimony, not because they thought ill of Sandra Fluke, but because they thought ill of the sense of entitlement.
I think that's exactly the reason, and frankly, that's where they start. What does the average Georgetown law graduate, if they choose, make if they're 20 years into their career or 15 in? I'll bet they're making $500,000 a year. They are the 1% that the 99% have been griping about. So here's a woman who's hugely entitled by living in America to begin with. That makes you lucky to begin with. Then going to one of the top law schools with the ability, even if she chooses not to exercise it, to make more money than most people will make she'll make more in 1 year than many people make in a lifetime of work. And then she says, and you should pay for my pills too. And as I said, it's simply false to say that it's $3,000 for 3 years. $80 a month? No, more like $9. So I think the testimony was disingenuous at best, false to Congress at worst, and I think she should be taken to task for that. And then, as you said, the idea that we should all pay for it through either insurance premiums or our taxes. Leslie, you said it's a woman's responsibility. So if it's a woman's responsibility, why isn't that woman choosing to buy her own birth control or take other measures? Simply abstain from sex.
I want to get Leslie's response, but I just want to play a quick soundbite from Sandra Fluke, because Bernie said he had no problem with the way in which she testified. I suggest to you that the way in which she testified was, in fact, a problem for some. Listen here.
Without insurance coverage, contraception, as you know, can cost a woman over $3,000 during law school. For a lot of students who, like me, are on public interest scholarships, that's practically an entire summer's salary.
Your thoughts on it, Leslie? I mean, you know, I think about my own sister who lost her job and literally is filling up her gas tank 1 gallon at a time. And that's what she's struggling. She's got 3 kids. She's a single mom. She can't fill up a gallon of gas. You know, the disdain for, you know, having to pay for her own birth control, which amounts to $3,000 over 3 years when she's about to graduate from Georgetown.
Well, there's not just, Megyn, as you know, that statistics show not just racial, but impoverished disparity when it comes to out-of-wedlock pregnancies or births. And that keeps women stuck in poverty. I don't want us to become, you know, as many people feel that we are becoming, a country of have and have-nots when it comes to birth control. And Lars, I'm not saying birth control is a woman's responsibility. I think society has done that, and I think that's wrong. And when you talk about Sandra, myself, anyone, and when you talk about us being, quote, entitled in America, no, I think we're privileged. And one of the privileges we have as an American is to stand before our government and to say what we believe and to make our demands and our requests known, even if it's not the most popular. This is her mountain she wants to die on, and I respect her as an American for doing that.
Quickly, Lars,
she has a right to her opinion, but Megyn, I got to tell you something. She thinks she's entitled to this. Why not housing? Why not food? Why not electricity? You can live a lot longer than that, you know, without that than without birth control pills.
All right, guys, it's a good discussion, the one that sort of got lost. We started it a week ago here, and here we are full circle. Thank you both so much, Leslie and Lars. All the best.
Thank you, Megyn.
Thanks, Bacon.